Hello, everyone, and welcome to Battle of the Beast Central. I'm Adam, and today is the last video where I'm going to be focusing entirely on the Battle of the Beast Insects only tournament. So, as of the time when this video will be uploaded, yesterday was the final episode of Battle of the Beast Insects only, where Kreta took on Skolo, and we crowned our winner. After 14 episodes of this tournament, it was the shortest, the quickest, and the most brutal tournament that we've had. But I'd argue it's probably my favourite due to recency bias of watching, well, recording, hosting, and watching every episode. In the span of 2 weeks, it got finished. I would say this is probably my favorite tournament because of how quickly it was recorded and done. The fact there wasn't a bit of a long hiatus between an episode and another one, and there wasn't a delay with it at all. So, whilst OG didn't have any editing at all, neither did the specials generation, but then we have the new generation where there was editing. Some episodes had more editing than others, and yeah, so some episodes had more focus than others did, which doesn't really have that kind of balance, which I would like to have spread across every episode. So there was a lack of balance on the new generation one, which stops that from being the best in my opinion. Then we go to the all generation tournament, where season 4, the longest one, in my opinion, is the best, and was, for the most part, there wasn't editing on the videos. There's editing on some of them, and others that due to no editing. Before I decided I'd do the stats department myself, it was a case of me just sitting at the camera for like 5 seconds, looking like an absolute idiot. So because of that, I took over for the stats department. Personal reasons for why that editing stopped, but it's been sorted now. I don't hold any grudges, but that is why that's there. So ignoring that, I would say the all generation is still the best because it brings together every beast up until that point to battle, which I think is brilliant and kind of isolates the New Protectors era Beast Quest. But that's when it started. New Protectors didn't exist then. And then we got Series 5, which in my opinion is probably my favourite because it's short, quick, snappy, and yeah, I actually like most of the beasts that took part in this tournament, and I would argue it's a bit unpredictable as well because there's a beast in this series that took part in it, which I would say was the underdog. I was not expecting this beast to make it as far as they did, and to know that it made it as far as it did, that's incredible. So I will let you know which beast that was when I get to this beast in one of the rankings of the battles. But originally, this video was going to be a top 5 ranking of the battles from the Insects tournament. And then I realised I had 9 battles I wanted to talk about. So I was like, okay, we'll add one more. Then I had a top 10. And then I was like, okay, well, there's only 4 other battles. Is there really a point? So it went from a top 5 to a top 10 to just ranking the entire tournament. So that's the best part about having a short tournament. I get to rank all the fights. So there are some fights which I obviously have more to say than others, but this is my opinion on which fight I think is the worst or which fight I think is the best. So this is my opinion. If your opinion is different, please in the comments below which fight was your favourite from this epic tournament. And with that, let's start with my least favourite fight of this tournament. So my least favourite fight is actually Skurek the Forest Demon versus Solix the Deadly Swarm. And what makes this one my least favourite is that the beasts here I didn't particularly care for that much. So with me not personally liking any of these beasts, that's one reason, complete biased. But then it also comes down to the whole battle just felt very one sided because Skurek had an opportunity with his adhesive ability, but his adhesive doesn't suffocate his opponents, so that kind of makes his ability redundant and more of a stall. And yeah, you can only stall for so long. And once Solix got herself back together, literally, she just killed Skurek quite quickly and easily because I didn't know what else I could actually do with this battle. There was lack of creativity I can actually have with this battle, and that's what made it, in my opinion, the worst battle of this tournament. 13th place, we have Quagos the Armored Beetle versus Diprox the Buzzing Terror. So with this fight, this one was also a one-sided fight to where it was very obvious on who would win. And yeah, it was a lack of creativity options for me, because whilst I would prefer to see Diprox move on to the next round, I like both of these bug beasts, that's what puts it over Skurek and Solix. And Diprox is the only, out of these two, is the only one that didn't make it to a future, to round 2 or something. Quagos, I think, has before. So it would have been nice to see a change of pace where Diprox actually makes it to the next round. But I couldn't give Diprox a victory over Quagos because there's no way Diprox could actually win. While she may be a cunning beast, when she realizes where Quagos' weak spot is, Quagos is able to fight back and defend himself quite well to the point where, yeah, Diprox wouldn't be able to win because Diprox needs to get up close and Quagos can defend himself up close. So yeah, a bit of a boring matchup, bit one-sided, but hey, at least Quagos got to have another fight in a future battle, which was also a good battle. So yeah, Quagos moved on and Diprox died in this battle. Moving on. 12th place, we have Solix the Deadly Swarm versus Tyrantix the Bone Spider. And what makes this one, in my opinion, one of the worst fights of the tournament is actually the same reason for the previous two, is lack of creativity. Because at that point, I kind of assume that there's nothing really inside of Tyrantix, plus that's not really Solix's signature ability to go inside of other beasts. So Solix only fought from the outside, and then it's a case of, oh yeah, use the web to just slow Solix down eventually, whittle her down, and then take her down there and then by just crushing her. It's a long shot for how Tyrantix actually beats Solix, but it makes more sense than Solix actually beating Tyrantix. So yeah, lack of creative options there, to where I had to try and think of a way for the Forest Arena to actually kill Solix for Tyrantix, and even then that's still a bit messy. But I did the best I can do with this fight. The only reason why it's higher than the others is that Tyrantix, I like way more than Solix, and I guess I kind of had fun doing it because I got to have a beast die that I don't particularly like, but it's still an okay fight. Moving on. 11th place is Sting versus Skolo, and for me, I actually enjoyed this fight. Was at the time when I recorded this, I didn't really think much of both of these beasts, and I only had it as one of the early fights of this round because of how obvious the outcome would be. I ultimately settled on putting it here because it was a bit one-sided, I did get to use the ability which I haven't used before with Sting in this purple jewel, but also Skolo got to have a victory, which was one which I wasn't expecting. It was quite, I would say, well done and really foreshadowed how formidable of opponent Skolo is. Speaking of which, as I said at the start of this video, there is an underdog of this series, and Skolo, in my opinion, was that underdog. Skolo was that beast which I looked at and thought, you'll probably die in round 2. And lo and behold, Skolo was a finalist. So yeah, I was not expecting Scarlet to make it as far as she did, and that for me earns her the title of the underdog. That does lead to. I do have an idea for a future video now. So thank you, Scarlet. You gave me an idea for a future video. But for me, this is a one-sided battle, which is why it's low on the list. But it did establish how much of a formidable threat Scarlet will be. In 10th place, we have Amictus versus Kamar. This was the debut battle of the tournament, and I would say this was a good one. It also debuted the Cave Arena for the first time it's ever been used, and ultimately, I would say this was a good debut for the arena. It really got to it. I described the arena in great detail, and the fight I think really foreshadowed how gruesome this tournament was going to be because of how Kamar died in quite a gruesome way by being was he decapitated? He was either decapitated or disemboweled. I don't remember what he was, but I know he was beaten very badly by Amictus. So it was a great it was a great start to the tournament in my opinion, and it really foreshadowed how gruesome this tournament was going to be. Moving on. In ninth place, we have Vespic the Wasp Queen versus Cressa the Winged Terror. And for me, this was going to be the final battle, round one, because it was a battle between two of my favorite bug beasts. Not my two favorite bug beasts, but two of my favorite bug beasts. And seeing them battle each other, I thought was destiny for this tournament. Because when I went into this tournament, I was fully expecting these two to fight each other eventually. I didn't think it'd be round one. But I went to this battle knowing that this was going to be an important battle of the tournament because it was a all-generation beast top 10 finisher, a quarter finalist, and a specials generation runner-up. So with both of those titles on the line, I had to give this the best fight I could for this tournament, and I think I did quite a good job with Vespic losing, but dying in quite a nice way compared to the other more brutal deaths. However, drowning, I would say, is not as nice as some people would say it is, because yes, she drowned, which is simple, but it was also a drawn out death. Other deaths which happened in this tournament were sometimes drawn out, but most of the time quick. This one was drawn out. And this started the foreshadowing of how merciless Cressa was going to be in this tournament. Moving on to my 8th favourite battle. In 8th place, we have Lipida versus Larnak. And for me, I actually enjoyed this battle. This battle, I wanted to be the final battle of round 2, and I made it be the final battle of round 2, because I thought it would show some unpredictability, because going into this battle, I thought Lipida was going to win. With her Gale Force Winds Hurricane Summoning ability, I was like, okay, she can just sweep up Larnak and make this a quick battle. But knowing I had to draw it out, I had to think of a way in which Larnak can survive it and then try and put up a fight back, and then push one thing led to another, and Larnak ended up winning. So whilst I predicted Lipida would win, I was wrong and went with the one which most people would think would win. But I'm not upset about that. I think Lipida died in quite a drawn out but quick and creative way, which I think really shows how great both of these beasts are. And this was Larnak's first battle in round 2. Well, first battle in general, and the last battle in round 2, the quarterfinals. So I think I was actually relatively surprised that it ended up being as good as it was. Whilst it may not be the most interesting matchup, to me it's a special one which really shown some unpredictability in this tournament. In 7th place, we have Quagos the Armoured Beetle versus Cressa the Winged Terror. And for me, I actually really enjoyed this fight. This was in the Fallen Kingdom arena, which Quagos battled in round 1. And it brought in Cressa, which, Quagos was fighting his first ever Swarm Beast, which didn't go well for Quagos, obviously, because Cressa ended up winning this battle. but Cressa won in such a brutal way, which made me feel bad for Quagos. He got tons of buildings crushed on top of him, some of which were self-inflicted, others were actually accidental, and then he was hoisted up into the sky by Creta, dropped on his shell, and then disemboweled. I would say that's a bit over the top for a death for Quagos, but I think it was done well. And like I said, the last battle of Cressa, which I mentioned with Cressa in, it really shows how merciless Cressa will be. So Quagos is just the latest victim. Moving on. In sixth place, we have Arachnid, the King of Spiders, versus Lepida, the Shadow Fiend. Also, like Lepida versus Larnak, this isn't the most interesting matchup. However, what really draws me into it was actually how the fight went. This was the second fight in the cave arena, and it was great. In my opinion, I went into this thinking either beast could win because I'll add a weakness for Lepida, which she very quickly took care of. Was she was doing that, Arachnid created a web throughout the whole arena to trap Lepida. Lepida was able to get through it, and then put one thing led to another, and Arachnid died in one of the most violent ways in this tournament, which was being split into three separate parts and being impaled on a stalactite and other things as well, which I think was very good in my opinion. And I felt bad for Arachnid with this one, but Lepida gave Arachnid the warning to not attack her, and Arachnid didn't listen. Therefore, Arachnid paid the price. Dearly did he pay the price. But yeah, this one was definitely one of the better battles of round one. In fifth place, we have Amictus the Bug Queen versus Skolo the Bladed Monster. And what made this fight one of the best ones, in my opinion, was actually the fact that, to me, I went into this fight being optimistic, thinking either beast can win. But then the more I went into this battle, the more I was thinking, actually, no, it's a bit one-sided. But I still made Amictus put up a good fight against Skolo. Whilst it ended up being that Skolo would win, he won in a way which trapped Amictus to where she stood, and then instead of waiting for Amictus to suffocate in the adhesive which covered her face, Skolo then decided to make a reference to the horror movie Alien and just bite into her chest and bite her heart out with the extended mouth that Skolo has. I thought that was a very good way to end a beast. And yeah, I had fun actually narrating that bit. A bit dark, I will admit, but hey, I still had fun doing it. So hey, what's the worst? Ultimately, though, one of the best fights in my opinion. Whilst it was one-sided, I still had fun doing it. In fourth place is Tyrantix the Bone Spider versus Makoro the Blinding Stinger. This was my favourite battle of round one, and it's not hard to see why. Because if you've seen the battle, you would know that Tyrantix completely destroyed Makoro to the point where Tyrantix made Makoro's ability seem useless. Makoro wasn't able to do anything against Tyrantix, which is her. Tyrantix was able to trap Makoro down, disembowel him, pull out his heart, and then split his head in half whilst he was seeing his heart stop beating. I gasping for breath. I thought that was a very dark, probably the most gruesome death in this tournament. And it was fun to do, honestly. Yeah, I don't know what else to really say. I went to this fight knowing that Tyrantix was going to win, but knowing how much creative liberty I had with this fight, I was like, yes, let's keep doing this. I like this fight. Let's keep it going. Moving on to the top three. So third place is Larnak the Swarming Menace versus Skolo the Bladed Monster. So this was the first battle of the semi-finals, and I actually really enjoyed this one because this fight's shown that Skolo learns while she's battling. And I went into this fight thinking Larnak was going to win and Skolo was going to lose. But then Skolo ended up surprising me and winning. And did a great job at this as well. Was inflicting harm on herself just to make Larnak lose her concentration, I think was ingenious. And to know that she used what she learned in this fight and used it in the finals, I thought was even better. At this point, I started thinking Skolo was the underdog because she got two relatively easy victories and then she won over Larnac, which was the most surprising victory she had, which ultimately made me label her as the underdog because I expected Larnac to make it here. I expected Tyrantix and Creta, but not Skolo making it to the semi-finals. Therefore, Skolo became the underdog after beating Larnac especially. Moving on to second place. My second favourite fight of the tournament was the second semi-final episode battle, being Tyrantix the Bone Spider versus Cressa the Winged Terror. And this fight was a direct callback to Cressa's fight against Quagos and Tyrantix's fight against Solix, to where Cressa was able to go over the top overkill on Tyrantix, whilst Tyrantix was whittling Cressa down one by one by using what she learnt in the fight against Solix, but also what she saw in the fight against Quagos. Well, the fight that Cressa had against Quagos. Not to mention Tyrantix being made of bone can take a lot of hits, and Cressa's signature ability can't be used on Tyrantix, which I think just added that extra layer of threateningness to Tyrantix, which, in my opinion, with how this fight went and ended, this was definitely a fight which I was very proud of. And yeah, I know that there's probably some people that watch this tournament that would say this was the best fight of the tournament, and I'd agree. I personally think this is one of the best fights. Is it the best? No. I can see where people are coming from, but to me, there is one more fight which I prefer more. But this one was definitely one of the best ones, in my opinion. I was really proud of it when it was done, and I was really excited to hear the feedback from Jack and Lucas on what they thought about this fight, because of how proud of this fight that I was. I wanted to hear their feedback to see if they agreed with me with how great this fight was, and thankfully they were. So, going to be more prouder of this one. But moving on to my favourite fights. But of course, my favourite fight of the tournament had to be Cressa the Winged Terror versus Skolo the Bladed Monster. This was the final battle of this tournament, and quite frankly, what a final battle this was. Building up to this, you had previous final battles of Torpix versus Crestor for the OG, where Torpix came out on top. You got Raksha taking on Cressa, where Raksha came out on top. Wardock versus Lycaxa, where Wardock came out on top. And Stritor versus Jakara, where Jakara came out on top. This was the first time that in the finals, a beast that was fighting was in the previous finals, which was Cressa. Cressa made it to this point before, and at this point, she was at the height of how bloodthirsty and merciless she was. She was not going to let anything get in her way from victory. And who was her opponent? The most surprising beast of the tournament, the beast which died very early in the All Generation Tournament and the Special Generation Tournament. The beast which no one expected to make it as far as she did. And especially no one expected to actually beat Larnac, is going against the former runner-up being Cressa. This battle, just by looking at the matchup, had a lot going for it. And once the battle began, it was action, 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 back to back, kept on going. Cressa using her signature ability, Skolo instantly countering that. Cressa pinning Skolo down, Skolo using what she learned in her semi-final battle to get out of that, and then apprehend Cressa, throwing tons of stalactites at her, and ending with Cressa using a new ability which she's never used before, where she splits into 5 mini versions of herself just to gang up on Skolo. it was an incredible fight, in my opinion, where I had the most creative liberty I've ever had with using Cressa, and I never would have believed you if you told me a year ago that her best battle would be against Skolo. But this was a final fight worthy final fight. This was probably my favourite final matchup. I will need to rank all the final matchups at this point from least favourite to favourite, but this one is definitely one of the best ones in my opinion. I need to refresh my memory on what the other ones were. Well, I know what they are. I need to refresh my memory how the other ones went. But I really enjoyed doing this fight, and with how much was on the line and how sentimental this fight was, considering this was 5 tournaments leading up to this moment, I think I felt obligated to have to put this as my favourite battle. Was Tyrantix versus Cressa maybe the better battle? This one was the more important battle. And with Cressa finally becoming a victor and joining Torpix the Twisting Serpent, Raksha the Mirror Demon, Wardock the Sky Terror, and Jakara the Ghost Warrior as the 5th beast to win a tournament on this channel anyway, is a big moment because Cressa was so close before and now she made it. Will it happen again? Will a former runner-up finally become another winner? Well, only time will tell. And we do have a lot more tournaments planned and lined up for where another runner-up could become a winner. But right now, Cressa is the only beast that was a runner-up and won a tournament at the same time. Okay, so that is my ranking on my least favourite fight of this tournament to my favourite. This was a kind of hard list to rank because ultimately, though, if anyone put the most effort into ranking this list, it was me. And I don't want to feel like I'm inflating my own ego here, but I'm the guy which sat down, recorded each and every one of these fights, laughed, got annoyed, sometimes cried off camera because of how these fights went. I enjoyed narrating these fights, every single one of them, even the ones which I said I wasn't a big fan of. I still enjoyed doing them because whilst they weren't entirely home runs, I did the best I could do to try and make it at least somewhat interesting. And I think I did the best, and I think I did all right. I did the best I can do. But with that, the Battle of the Beast Insects and Arachnids only has finally come to a close, with our victor being Cressa the Winged Terror. So, now, with Series 5 completely done within 2 weeks, join me in the next video where I'll be announcing the next tournament that'll be coming out. It's going to be a very small break from until the next tournament starts, but I finished recording the finals on a few days ago. At the time I'm recording this, is Thursday the 16th. I finished recording the finals on Tuesday the 14th, and it'll be uploaded on Friday the 17th. On Sunday the 19th, a new announcement video for the next tournament will be coming out, where we'll be seeing our opponent, where we'll be seeing the competitors, as well as the winner. But who that winner will be, not even I know. But what I do know is, though, that is all for this time. If you liked what you saw, if you liked this tournament, leave a like, leave a comment, don't forget to subscribe. Which beast will be joining Cressa and the others in the Victor's Circle after Series 6? Well, only time will tell. But until then, from me and our Victor for Season 5, we'll see you next time.